Today, I'm joined by Phillip Dennis and Matt Parks from Watkyn LLC, one of Caspio's premier partners. And today they will be sharing their thoughts about low code versus traditional development, which is right for your business. So, welcome, Phillip and Matt. Thank you for joining Caspio's podcast today. So, Phillip, why not kick us off and share with everyone a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Thanks, Paul. We appreciate very much your inviting us to participate in this. I'm the founder and owner of Watkyn LLC. We're a custom enterprise and small business, mid-sized business software development company. We're based in South Florida, although our team is distributed all over the place. And we build all kinds of custom business applications to meet business needs, different business use cases, different kinds of industries, and things like that.
Great. Matt, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, likewise, very glad to be here, Paul, and have a chance to talk to you about Caspio and what we do at Watkyn. I'm a little newer to Watkyn, been about a year and a half since I got on board. My background is in academia. I was a college professor for a number of years and academic administrator, and so I kind of run the day-to-day business operations of Watkyn at this point.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So I know you've obviously been a Caspio customer for over 2 years, and I think you were established in 2015. So what type of customers are you working with today?
We work with all different kinds of customers. We have a number of customers in government, from the federal government of the United States and states and counties and things like that, down to very, very small businesses, startups, even solopreneurs come to us because they have some special business need, some special use case, maybe to reach a market that hasn't been tapped before. And they'll ask us to build an application to help them reach that market. So all over the place in terms of industries and company sizes.
Yeah.
We're happy to work with everybody.
Where is kind of your strength, Philip, in terms of location where your customers are based?
Well, our customers are based all over the world in
Okay.
reality. Although because we're an American company, we tend to have more contacts and more traction in U.S. markets. But in fact, we have clients in the UK, we have clients in Europe, South America, Central America as well, including, I guess, the Asia Pacific region as well. We have a government agency in the Asia Pacific region that has custom software that we built for them.
So you're fully diverse customers and you're located around the world. That's great to know. So I know I mentioned earlier that the company was established in 2015. So can you remember what drew you, Philip, to the low code platforms like Caspio compared to traditional development?
Yeah, it was actually almost by accident, to be honest, Paul. I
Yeah.
was working in a public relations agency in the finance area, and we had a business need that wasn't being met by the off-the-shelf software that we were using, specifically around the area of time and billing and being able to keep track of our projects for our public relations clients in terms of the budget, how much had been spent of that budget, how much we would be billing them for out-of-pocket expenses that needed to be charged back, and things like that. And the result of not having good software to help us do that was several things. One, we went way out of scope on a number of projects where we worked a lot of hours that we weren't ultimately able to bill. In many cases, many months, it took us just a terribly long time to close the books because it was so difficult to calculate the billing at the end of the month. It was, and to determine how much revenue we had the right to recognize, it was very difficult to figure out the profitability of the projects and of the business. So I first learned about no code and low code platforms in that situation because there was this business need that needed to be met. It really was a problem that was affecting the whole company, including the management, the owners. But it fell on my shoulders because I was the one who was under the pressure to generate these numbers and so on, and do all the work to put those together. And there were no resources. I mean, we had an IT department, but the IT department was busy with other things. They weren't going to be able to help with anything like this, and there was no money. So essentially, I was able to do some research and figure out that, well, even though I don't have a traditional programming background myself, I had done programming in the past, but it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a degree in computer science. So even though I lacked that traditional computer science and programming background, with the help of no code platforms, low code platforms like Caspio, I found out that I would be able to create an application that would solve this need. And that's in fact what I did. And out of that grew my company almost by accident, as I say. because people learned, even without promoting this skill set, people learned that I had some success in this area and began to seek me out for consultation, for help with different things. And it grew to the point that I couldn't keep up with it and began to bring on other developers and so on. And so we grew kind of in this grassroots sort of incremental way up to the present.
Yeah. When just kind of building on that then, so when customers come to you, Phillip and Matt, is there any particular factors from a business owner perspective they're considering choosing between traditional development, off-the-shelf solutions, and low code and no code?
Hmm. Yes, a lot of things that would need to be considered when you're thinking about those possibilities. I would say that the first thing to think about is first of all, is there a good off-the-shelf solution
Yeah.
available? If there is, fantastic. Problem solved. Go buy it, install it, learn how to use it, configure it, and so on. And certainly for some industries and use cases, there are good off-the-shelf solutions available. Just to give an example, in our almost 10 years as Watkyn, we've never been approached by a restaurant, for example, asking for a restaurant point of sale solution.
Yeah.
And with so many restaurants starting all the time, if there were a need in that space, I think someone would have reached out to us by now. But you go to a restaurant, you see the tablets and things like that are in use. Obviously, there are some good solutions there. We've never been asked to build a custom accounting package, right? People are pretty happy with Xero or with QuickBooks or Dynamics or whatever it may be. So if there is a good point solution out there that meets your needs, go with it. In many cases, people, they know there's not something that exactly meets their needs, but they're wrestling with the question of, can I make this work for my business? There's a bit of a trade-off. How much, to what extent can I wrestle this piece of software, this solution to work with my business needs, or to what extent do I need to kind of force my business model into what this software can do? And that's a decision that each business owner, director, manager, the person who's making the decision about software needs to address for himself or herself. It's not necessarily an easy one. But if I can add to that, just real quickly, I think the real key factor when considering, I guess, traditional software development. So putting to the side the question of an off-the-shelf solution. So let's say there's not an off-the-shelf solution that's going to work for you. So then your two options are, do I go with a traditional software development approach where we're going to hire some people who are going to write code, or should I go with a low-code platform like Caspio? And I think the key questions there have to do with two things. One is maturity. And by maturity, I mean the maturity of the business and the process that's at the heart of what the software needs to solve. And I can say a little bit more about that. And the other is complexity, the complexity of the process. So if you'll let me just elaborate on these a little bit. In general, I would say that mature businesses, and by mature businesses, I mean businesses that have access to capital, businesses that have an established place in the marketplace, maybe in a mature market itself, or their position is kind of secure. Mature businesses or mature processes. So, in other words, the business process or function that the software needs to support to make more efficient or to provide more information about, more insight into, is mature. All the requirements are known. What needs to happen is clearly known. It's not subject to a lot of change. In those two cases, maturity of the business and the process, or an extremely complex process, those kinds of organizations should strongly consider a traditional software development approach. I don't say exclusively they should consider that. I still think they ought to look at low code, no code, but those would be the best candidates typically for a traditional software development approach. Everybody else really ought to look first at low code or no code. And so this would mean newer businesses because they're probably don't have as much access to capital as a more mature business does. And a traditional software development approach will give you a lower total cost of ownership over the long term, but not in the short term. In the short term, a low code or no code platform will give you more for your money. Businesses that are where the process is maybe not mature, they're not sure exactly how it should work yet, They're trying out a product market fit, and they need some software to support that. The market that they're participating in is really dynamic and changing. They're iterating, they're growing rapidly. All of those are situations where no code or low code should, without a doubt, be the first thing that you consider and look at.
I think if you look at the Caspio marketplace and you look at the apps that are most popular there, you get a pretty good sense of what are the best use cases for no code, low code kind of platforms. You see CRM, you see project management, you see things that help with, let's say, a small medical firm, time scheduling and these sorts of things. And so those are just the kind of people that we certainly have in mind as we think about that as a solution for would-be clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. And I would say also, just to add to, if someone is listening to this or watching this and thinking about whether they should go with no code, low code, or traditional software development approach, a couple other things that they really need to think long and hard about are the availability of technical resources, not just for the development, but for the long-term maintenance and administration. It's one thing to be able to hire developers like us or internal developers to build something for you from scratch, writing in JavaScript or Python or C# or whatever it may be. But once that application that's built from scratch, that's not on a no-code platform, is built, there's still a lot of long-term maintenance and administration. The cloud computing infrastructure needs to be maintained and updated. Certain elements of the tech stack that are used may be deprecated, and they need to be kept current and things like that. So I mentioned earlier, there's a lower long-term total cost of ownership for totally custom code writing sort of software development, but there is an ongoing technical burden of administration and maintenance that you just don't have with a platform like Caspio, where a lot of that back-end administration is taken care of for you as part of the platform.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Phillip and Matt. So just kind of delving a little bit deeper into this, in your experience, because of all the customers that you manage and the prospects you're talking to around the world, such a diverse portfolio you have, is there any primary challenges that you can see that are leading business owners to seek out the new technology solutions in the first place?
Yeah, definitely. A large number of companies that come to us are challenged with the need to do more with less.
Yeah.
So they have to operate more efficiently for many reasons. I mean, that could be because the marketplace is competitive. It could be because they're a small business and they're bootstrapping, and so they have limited resources with which to make it or break it, and so they need to operate more efficiently. In many cases also, it's because there are just new markets that are opening up. And this is something that we've seen really since, I guess, even the 90s, but the mid 2000s in the West, in the United States in particular, there's just been an explosion of entrepreneurship. The United States has always been an entrepreneurial country, but never before have so many young people said, I want to be an entrepreneur, and everybody has an idea for starting a business. Well, technology has both made that possible for people to start all kinds of new businesses that are changing the way people do things, but it's also created a requirement, a demand for new software because people are creating new business models and new industries, and existing software just simply doesn't meet the needs. And so in order to find something that will allow their unique business model to work in the marketplace, or even to create the software that will create the marketplace, they're looking for new technology solutions.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of moving on to a different area is talking to your customers and your prospects. Is there some common misconceptions business owners have? They're telling you about low-code platforms.
Yes, I would say one that we dealt with recently, actually, with a prospective client who did since become a client. This company was concerned about data security. They had a strong preference initially to create something from scratch in C# or something like that they would then host from their own server and make available through kind of a company intranet or something like that. Now, this was a small business. In fact, it's a startup. but they had big plans to grow. But one of the principals, one of the founders of the company, had experience with this kind of developing custom software and hosting it on a server and things like that. And this person had concern that, I don't know, a no-code, low-code platform. How do I know that my data is safe and secure? And what we helped them to understand was that, in fact, their data is much more is more likely to be really secure on a platform, a no-code, low-code platform, because there are, a company like Caspio has a responsibility to safeguard that data on behalf of its clients, and it uses professionals to do that. Whereas a small business that wants to save some money running some code on their server probably doesn't have a dedicated IT person or a security expert who's going to make sure the server software is kept up to date, the database is kept up to date, everything is up to date and patched on time when these security breaches come in. Hackers and bad actors really like to target small businesses because they know that the security is likely to be less rigorous than an enterprise software platform like Caspio. So that's a big misconception. I would say that another one that we hear with some regularity is concern about lock-in. So people are concerned that, well, if I build this application on this platform and then I don't want to use that platform anymore, well, I guess I'm locked in. I can't get my data out. I can't port that application to another platform. And that's both true and not true in different ways. It's not true that your data is locked in. You've got access to your data. You can export your data in a variety of different formats, and you could move your data if the situation called for it to another platform. You could export it, import it, lots of ways to do that. It is true that when you develop on a no-code or low-code platform, you can't just export the code base and then install it, let's say, on AWS or something like that. It doesn't work like that. But on the other hand, typically when someone would develop something on a low-code or no-code platform, they would then be using it for a number of years, both refining the concept, refining the processes that it supports, and so on. And so if the time ever did come when they wanted to move that application out of the platform and onto something else, develop it for themselves, hosted in AWS or Microsoft Azure or something like that, because the requirements would already be fully known, because the process would have been refined and documented and so on, it would actually be comparatively simple at that point to create something from scratch with code to replicate that process that they had refined on a platform like Caspio. So starting your development, starting the process, the automation of the process on a platform like Caspio is actually very often a really smart idea, and it doesn't lead to lock-in. It leads to a more robust testing and refinement of the idea.
Okay, thanks, Philip, for that. You got me thinking about the decision-making process and what the needs are for SMBs, mid-market, right up to the larger organizations. And obviously, you've got a full spectrum of customers that fit into those buckets. When it comes to app development, is there anything that you see the decision-making process differ from these type of customers, from the small right to the large?
Definitely, there's a different decision-making process for different sizes of organizations. Although in some cases, it just depends on the organizational culture.
Yeah.
So to give you some examples, in general, smaller businesses tend to be flatter, right? So it's usually easier to talk to the decision maker, the owner, the managing director, or whoever it may be, and to make a decision about a direction you want to go with technology. Because the need is there and it's acute. It's an acute need. We have a process, it's not working. I don't have the information I need. There's a competitive situation that we need to have this information. We need to operate more efficiently. So there's an acute business need, and the business will make the decisions quickly in order to solve the problem.
Yeah.
That tends to be the culture of a small or mid-sized business. Larger organizations, of course, are, especially once you get into either government or publicly traded organizations, there are lots of legal and regulatory compliance issues, issues of governance, change management. There are typically a lot more stakeholders involved in a decision, both a decision to change, make a technology change,
Yeah.
and people who will be affected, right, by the technology change. So those are always a slower, more deliberative, careful, investigative approach to making a change in technology or to developing an application. And we work with all sizes of organizations and you know, work to the comfort level and to the requirements that are of the culture or the environment that the client operates in order to discover those requirements and deliver a solution that they love to use every day.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Philip. I think just from what I know from experience is obviously the smaller companies, they're much quicker to make a decision. Start to go to the large enterprise companies, like you said, there's a lot more stakeholders that are involved in the decision-making process, and that sometimes can slow down. There's more people where it might impact within a wider organization as well. So I think your point's really is clear. It makes sense.
Well, if I can just add to
Yeah.
that, Paul, I mean, we this is where I think no code can help quite a lot
Mm.
in some ways, because even in large organizations, for example, if you're going to talk about, well, let me back up. In a large organization, if you're going to talk about creating software from scratch with code, hosting it on the organization's own internal IT infrastructure or their cloud computing infrastructure,
Mhm.
that's always going to involve IT. And in general, IT is going to be very cautious because uh, IT has a difficult job to do in a large organization. If anything goes wrong, they take the blame. They're rarely praised, unfortunately. They're rarely appreciated to the extent that they should be. And when something goes wrong, they're kind of ignored often until something goes wrong, and then
Yeah.
they're in a lot of trouble, getting calls, staying up all night, working nonstop. So IT has a really difficult time in many cases. And so it's easy to understand why they're so guarded and cautious about technology changes. Well, no code platforms, low code platforms like Caspio can help um, organizations like that, or help business units within organizations like that, because it can provide a way for those smaller functional units to get software that meets their specific needs, their specific use cases, in a way that won't burden or tax IT with all the resources that are required to build something from the ground up. And IT can still provide oversight and governance.
Yeah.
We've worked with some government agencies, for example, in some very large units of government that have really benefited from this. There's IT oversight and governance, but the business unit or the department in this government unit has the freedom within this framework, this structure that IT has set up, to develop applications on a low code platform that meet their far flung uh, programs and initiatives and things that they undertake for their constituents. So low code, no code platforms can really um, be a big help, I think, to larger organizations, as long as it's done with the blessing of IT and in cooperation with IT.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Philip. A lot of customers that I speak to, especially the larger organizations, by working with Caspio and our partners and working with low code, it saves them not just efficiency savings, but also a good ROI in terms of investment as well, because they don't have to have a team of their highly expensive IT team building these type of things. They can outsource this to Caspio and our partners at a much lower rate as well. So it's interesting to find out when I talk to a lot of customers is that when I always ask them about what ROI are you seeing, they say both cost savings and also efficiency savings as well.
Yeah,
So
that's right. I think that's an excellent point.
yeah, Matt, I was going to just kind of go back to what you said before about Caspio's marketplace. And I know obviously Watkins has a project management tool housed on there. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Paul. One of the things I love about Caspio is the really low price of entry. So the starter plan is really, really affordable, and just compared to other no-code, low-code platforms out there, really a remarkably good deal. And so one of the questions I imagine your sales team gets, or that we would get, is, well, can you do anything on the starter plan? Is that enough data pages to actually build a decent app and actually manage some part of your business operations? And so we thought, well, let's prove that you can. And so we had the idea of looking at a couple of the very common use cases. Again, we've mentioned that are found in your marketplace apps, a project management app, and we're also working on a CRM that are able to work within that starter plan and a little bit of an add-on on top of that, but actually do real things for your business. So that project management app is able to help you keep track of your projects from beginning to end. You can track activities. You can do your billable hours, your payable hours. You can get all kinds of reporting. Keep track of how various projects are doing. If you're the manager, you make sure everyone on the team is being productive. You can keep track of your documents associated with the sales process as well. And so really, if you're a law firm, maybe you're a CPA with a partner, maybe you're a small medical firm, law firm, marketing agency, right? All these kinds of businesses that are working on a project-based system, like ourselves for that matter. This app is really well suited for that kind of work. And maybe you outgrow it. Maybe you decide, yeah, we need some more functionality, and we're going to take a step up to the next level of Caspio plan. Great, a lot more things you can do there, and you can build out the app. But maybe you find actually we're okay right here, or at least you have a chance to have an extended trial and see, yeah, this is really working well for us. We see the value of Caspio. We see the efficiency it's bringing to our operations, and so you don't have to worry about am I going to be switching systems very quickly because I can't afford it or because I just don't find it functionally adequate for my needs. This gives you a chance to really test that water over a period of time and see how it can bring real value to your business.
Thanks for sharing that, Matt. And you mentioned before about the Starter CRM app that you've created as well. Can you share a little bit about that one as well?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Yeah, coming soon, we hope. We've submitted it for approval, so we trust it will get through the rigorous review process that you put these things through. But yeah, this is designed really to focus on the sales side of your operations. So you've got somebody that contacts you, a new lead, and you want to follow that lead all the way through the sales funnel. We've got the graphics and the tables and charts and statistics that'll help you monitor to do that and to follow that process. You can keep track of all your interactions with the client or the would-be client, phone calls, emails. We've got template descriptions so that we know the sales team wants to move on to the next call. They don't want to record the previous call. So we've got templates there. You can just click on, yep, this is what the call was about, make a slight customization as appropriate, and then move on to the next call and keep building business and making money. So we've got this designed for the sales manager and the sales member of the team. And again, lots of functionality. It's amazing what you can do with a well-designed app on the starter plan at Caspio.
Matt, what was your experience in building these two apps on the Caspio platform?
Well, we've got a great developer who worked on those, and I was kind of there watching the process as it went along. But yeah, it was funny because even from the first to the second app, she'd learned some things. We'll give her the challenge of saying, okay, you have 20 data pages, and you find here's some ways to be more efficient. Here's some ways to get some sub-reports and extra charts that you didn't think you could do before. She learned some things about how to position things and make the best use of your page. And so, yeah, it was a real neat kind of exploration of the capabilities of Caspio, and it kind of push a developer, say, look, you can't just do whatever you want to do. You've got to stick within these boundaries. And I think she was surprised and pleasantly surprised as we were to see, again, just how much functionality you could build into a starter plan app.
Yeah. Okay. And just kind of looking into the future, how do you see the role of low-code platforms evolving in the business development app landscape?
I see them growing and increasing,
Hmm.
in particular because of generative AI.
Yeah.
So, as we all know now, with generative AI, you can radically increase the productivity of programmers. And we've all seen examples where you don't even need programmers in some cases to write code. The AI will do it for you. Well, this does mean that there will be, in the long term, I think, less need for traditional code writing programmers, but there will be an increasing need for custom software. And it's going to be no and low code platforms, I think, that are where that software is created and deployed in many cases for a lot of businesses, because they'll be able to develop it themselves. Already, you can develop it yourself. You don't have to have that degree in computer science to build an app yourself on Caspio. You can learn it. There's great tutorials, YouTube videos, and so on, office hours and things like that. So you can learn it yourself. But with generative AI, that's only going to help. And so platforms like Caspio, I think, are going to become even more of a mainstream part of the software development landscape in the years to come.
Yeah, I think you're right, Philip, is that we've recently launched AI Connect extension, and it's had a big splash in the marketplace because it's all about speeding up the development of the application, and anything where AI can take away the cumbersome, repetitive type tasks away. I think it's only going to grow even stronger and stronger over the coming months and years now. So it's quite exciting to be able to have that and grow AI into the platform as well and expand on that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there with AI, like a lot of businesses are looking at that right now. So kind of wrapping this up then, in terms of if somebody's listening to this podcast or watching the video, what advice would you give to businesses considering low code for their development needs?
Well, they're right to consider it. It certainly should be considered. I think the most important thing they could do would be to talk to us or another professional consulting firm that works in this space, because we're the ones who can really help you honestly assess, would a no code or low code platform be the best fit for the use case that you're trying to solve for. And we can because we know Caspio so well, we can really evaluate, to what extent Caspio would help to solve the problem you're facing. And so there's no need to just try to figure it out yourself. Come and talk to us. There's no charge, and let's explore your business needs together and see if how Caspio could solve the problem.
Well, Philip, Matt, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you being a Caspio Premier Partner for the last just over 2 years now. So I hope for many more years of success, and we'll put all your contact details into this recording as well, so people can contact you directly and have further conversations. But again, really appreciate your time today. I think it's been a really interesting conversation, especially when we're focused on low code versus traditional development.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a pleasure to be here and talk with you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Paul.
your
Really
time.
appreciate it. Thanks.